Oh, hey, Alice. Good timing. I'm sitting here with Hyatt and Liz from Cassette Stress.
Thanks for
So,
having us.
yeah, absolutely. So you walked in at a good time. We're just getting into it. Um, Cassette Stress, they have a show coming up June 10th at Springwater with Panda Forces and Taxiway.
Yep.
So that's really exciting.
Yeah, looking forward to that one.
Yeah, those are good people. So yeah, it'll be a good show.
Yeah, no doubt.
Legendary place too, Springwater.
Oh yeah. We just played there with Drifters and Velocore this week on Sunday.
Oh, right on.
So, yeah.
I heard once that like Johnny Cash has been through Springwater. That's how old that
Cool.
place is.
I think it's actually been there since the 1800s.
Whoa. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So previously, before it was what it is now, I think it was part of the Centennial Exposition or one of those big fairs that they used to have here where they had the original Parthenon.
Okay.
So it's been around. I think it was some restaurant or something related to the exposition, but it's been there since then. So
Wow.
yeah, it's been here a long time.
A really legendary place.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's nuts. That's so yeah, going on like 2 centuries or over that, I guess, potentially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
quite a long time.
Yeah. I've seen a very wide amount of shows there too.
Oh yeah.
Like everything.
Yeah, no doubt.
Everything and anything been through Springwater.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's kind of a key place for anybody starting out, further down their career. Just it's a good place to just go and let it loose.
Yeah. Speaking of starting out, what is kind of y'all's journey from origins to here? If you want to take me maybe back to the beginning.
Yeah, well,
how long a story do you want?
Whatever I can get.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, in some ways, this project has kind of been bubbling along for us for quite some time. In terms of really being active, I mean, we just played our first show in December. So, and we booked that before we had totally finished all our arrangements. So we were just, we decided we needed to set ourselves a deadline and get that and just go into it. So, but I mean, that's the official start, but really, I mean, quite a number of years. This is a sound that we've been reaching towards for quite a long time. I don't even know like where it started, but looking at or listening back to some of tapes that we did on the Tascam 4-track, quite a number of years ago. Listening back to those, I can hear little flashes of riffs or pieces of songs. So kind of been going a while.
Yeah,
we always thought we would do a duo project, but originally we were doing Hyatt was playing guitar instead of bass, and I was playing drums, and we're big White Stripes fans, and we felt like we were always sort of ripping them off on some level, and trying to like come up with our own sound was difficult. I think at that time, especially because I had just started playing drums. And so we kind of reached a stopping point with that project where we just couldn't really take it any further. And we had written some songs. We threw out probably half the songs that we wrote because we thought they were terrible.
There was a lot of stuff.
And then we played with some other people, kind of after that, and a couple other projects, and then finally circled back to this.
Right on.
So, but yeah, I think Hyatt playing bass was like the key for us. Really kind of like changed how we looked at composition of the songs and everything, and at least came together
for yourselves. That seems like that was kind of a pivotal moment where you came into your own and developed your own voice as an artist. Is that
actually that was so there are a couple of things that really brought it all together. So for years we were fans of White Stripes, Black Keys, The Kills, kind of a lot of duos that were doing a lot of stuff that was in the bluesy vein, maybe with some different elements thrown in there. And that was kind of where we started. But at least for me, I just never, where we were going, I never felt like I was doing anything that wasn't, hadn't already been done by one of those three bands. So, we were searching for sounds for a long time. Me playing guitar, Liz playing drums. At some point, Liz went to the rock camp that's run by the organization that runs the kids Southern Girls Rock and Roll Camp.
I think I know what you're talking about.
So they have an adult version that is sort of a fundraiser for the kids camp, and Liz played bass. So she bought a bass, and was going to start learning that. And then I stole
I
it.
took it.
I took it. I was like, well, I don't know. I think I kind of like this. And, you're doing really well on the drums. So I think I'm just going to take this. We're going to see where that goes. And that was kind of the thing that made it crystallize, because I could never get out of a lot of guitar playing habits with guitar, but picking up the bass, it just took it in a totally different place.
I think bass and drums are like the most essential part of music, right? Like, at least in my opinion, it's like, that's all, it really comes down to drums and bass. That's everything, really.
Yeah. I mean,
Totally.
that's the rhythm. And we were trying to go for something that was very, very rhythm oriented, very, just a lot of beat, a lot of low end, and trying to do that with guitar, with octave pedal down and all that. It just, I don't know. It never really had the right drive.
Well, it's really groovy stuff y'all are doing.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. That's a cool way of coming into it. Are you guys from here originally?
Been here a long time,
I gotcha.
but didn't grow up here.
Okay.
Yeah, same.
Gotcha. So I'm gonna throw a complete segue at you guys.
Oh yeah, gonna get into the easy stuff.
So let's do like in whichever order you guys want to answer.
Okay, fair enough.
Let's do, what do you think happens after you die? And I like to preface that with, no one really knows. No one at all really knows, but I think we all have different ideas about it. So
yeah. Like I said, starting with the easy ones.
Yeah.
Do you want to throw it in here, or you want me to?
Sure, my answer's super short. When you die, you're dead, and that's the end of it.
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, to your point, we don't know, and I think it kind of either one or two things is going to happen. Either it's going to be nothing, in which case, it doesn't matter, because it's going to be nothing, or it will be something. But I think it will be so far outside of our experience, in our lives, that it's almost impossible to even conceive of what that will be, because you're going to be, say your consciousness survives in some way. I mean, I think so much of our personality and everything is very much governed by our, physical body and our, hormones and hunger and experience and weather and time of year and all that. That you take all of those aspects away, are you really going to recognize yourself even?
That's a good point. If there is something, it wouldn't be you. It would be something different for sure.
Right.
Yeah. It's like so much of the ego is tied to physicality.
Yeah.
And like develop your personality out of your environment, things around you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's a very interesting point. I think at that point, it'd be even hard to call that life, right? Because something we kind of define life as is having to eat and like survive.
Sure. Yeah.
And if you don't have necessities, are you really alive?
Right. And maybe you are, maybe it is a kind of life, but it would be so far outside of our experience that it's almost hard to even think about it in any concrete way, to me.
Yeah. It's such an abstract thing. I think that's the catch-22 of what I like about it and what I don't like about it.
Yeah.
Is like, it is such, there's no ground we could possibly get to get a footing on, because everyone's opinion is equally correct on it, because we have no idea whatsoever.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. What about how we came to be here on Earth? Any ideas about that? I guess let's say physically, like how humans came to be.
Oh, well, at least as far as I'm concerned, I mean, long process of evolution from whatever those origins are, which, of course, at this point remain fairly mysterious.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's how I look at it.
Yeah, natural selection.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it was called, like Occam's razor. Like the simplest explanation is usually the best, is usually the true one.
Right.
Yeah. I think recently something I struggled with a long time was like a missing link kind of idea, because I understand that, but it's like, it seems like there is a gap between apes and humans to me. And I've tried to quantify that with maybe there were psychedelics involved. Maybe chimps ate these things and gained consciousness that way, or some kind of alien intervention where it's like one of our oldest written records is the Epic of Gilgamesh. It's like Sumerian tablet, and it tells us about aliens coming down and splicing their DNA into us. So I mean, but there's tons of old stories like that. But anyway, there seems to be a gap for me.
Yeah.
But someone recently was telling me, well, it feels like that maybe because it's such a long period of time, but it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be that. It could also just be natural selection, because we're talking about a very long period of time. And I think I'm underestimating that, because potentially millions of years, right?
Oh, absolutely. And, I mean, once you take into account, generations upon generations, improving a little bit, changing a little bit over time. And maybe there were, events that put pressure on whatever the pre-human or human population that caused changes, quickly. I mean, that can definitely happen. So, maybe there were slow changes over time, but then some event there, like, I'm trying to remember exactly the parameters of this, but there's an event called I think it was the Great Filter, or maybe I'm using the wrong term for this, but some event that they posit just based on DNA analysis, that the early human population got whittled down to like 10, maybe 50,000 individuals, maybe so somewhere in that range, maybe volcanic explosion, something like that. But that we survived kind of a winnowing down of the population to something like to a very small number. And something like that could really change people in a few generations, like having those kind of
that could
pressures,
be the missing
survival
link.
pressures. Yeah, could be.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean,
because that sounds to me like the people that survived would have been the most would have been the ones. If so few people survived, it would have been the top of the top, most intelligent, and I guess also most physically capable people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's an interesting thing, thinking about that. And there's another area that I would like to know more about. That I just think there's not the records, or there's no. I mean, there's not a lot of evidence about it, just simply because it's technically prehistoric. But that period right before the rise of cities, or the first sort of what we would think of as semi-permanent civilizations, like when people were living maybe in little bands or family groups, and just out in the wilderness, what that would have been like.
Yeah, I wonder what their philosophies would have been like.
Exactly. I mean, all these people probably living in fairly isolated circumstances, isolated from each other. I mean, what kind of ideas about the world and art and conceptions of everything would you come up with in a time where you may maybe years between seeing anyone outside of your group? And then when you collide with another group, what does
that do to you?
For sure.
And on that same line of thinking, like going back to Sumeria, like there was a flood, a great flood that destroyed the whole world. And I think if you're in an isolated region and something destroyed that, for as far as you're concerned, that is the entire world.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So like you're saying, it makes a lot of sense, like, especially if you're talking about small nomadic tribes, how they develop vastly different worldviews. And I think something that's interesting about that is you see similarities crop up too.
Yeah.
Right. It's like there's these universal truths where people completely isolated from each other develop the same concepts of things.
Right.
I guess before we move on, Liz, do you have anything to add about where we came from?
No, but I was just thinking, like, I guess question for y'all. Do you think that we are continuing to evolve? Does natural selection still apply in the way that it did before, with the advanced medical care that we have, the way that we are able to globally communicate, the infrastructure we have to educate everyone? I just makes me interested to think if we're still continuing to get smarter or not.
I think like yes and no, because it's like I'm trying not to give like a non-answer, but that's like okay, so like for example, I have awful eyesight, and that's genetic. Both my parents have really bad eyesight.
Same.
300 years ago, I wouldn't be able to like gather on my own. That natural selection, I just wouldn't have reproduced. And it's like it gets into like tricky territory, because that's almost like talking about eugenics though, because it's like there are, because our society is softer, it is a fact that people are going to, it's not just the most physically or mentally fit are going to survive. So we're going to actually develop genetic defects and things like that. And that's just part of it. So I think obviously technologically we're getting more advanced, but like, for example, I have this cell phone and this computer, but I don't know how to make this. I have no
Sure.
earthly idea what it takes to make something like this.
Right.
So I think, and I think most people don't. So it's like most of us, I think we're not. I think we're getting weaker and dumber. Like, have you guys seen that movie Wall-E?
Mm-mm.
Oh, the one about the robot.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
basically everyone that was on Earth is now in a space station, and
Yeah.
they're in like wheelchairs, and they're all extremely obese, and they don't do anything all day, and
Right.
robots take care of everything,
Yeah.
and everything is just trash everywhere.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know? Just ultimate consumer. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that is an interesting point that so much of our, modern world, no one of us could produce, but I feel like that's been a component of, human society for definitely hundreds of years. I mean, one of my, nerdy pursuits back in the day was learning about illuminated manuscripts, learning calligraphy and all this kind of stuff. And we're talking about, 1100. And even in those days, there may be this concept of, the monks sitting in their cloister doing this all by themselves, but that's not really how it was. There was a whole industry of experts who could make vellum. And then there was, the whole industry of people who could make the ink. Sometimes, monks would make their own, but there's an industry for that. A lot of the pigments that they used were brought from far, places that they would never go to in their lifetime. But there's a whole, even back then, there was a whole infrastructure for something as simple as making a book. I just think that's inherent to human society, that is, specialization has to arise quickly, because you can only get so good at any one thing in your life, I think.
Yeah, I think the concept of like an alchemist was kind of, it was like the all chemist.
Right.
The spiritual healer,
Right.
the medicine man, the everything, the mathematician. And it's like, I think at a certain point in society, we realize all these subjects are so broad that one man can't possibly. So we start divvying it out, and experts in different fields and things.
Right.
But yeah. I should have had something. It'll come back to me. So where do you guys think art comes from? Because we were talking earlier about some of the songs that you had written. You ended up tossing out a bunch of them, and that to me is the sign of like a real artist, right? It's like I'm personally, I'm never really satisfied with what I do. Nothing I do is ever good enough for me. Right. Yeah, I'm sure you guys can relate
totally.
to that.
Oh, 100%. Even the things that that we're playing out now, you kind of get to a point where you're like, well, that's just where we are. We're just gonna have to go with that.
Well, that's the best place to be, though. I think, right? Because if you think that's the best song I ever made, that's not where you want to be.
Right.
Like, right?
Yeah, because it's all downhill after that.
Yeah. And we still don't have the sound that we want. We want to kind of push it in a little bit more of an electronic direction.
Okay.
I have a Roland drum pad, and I only use it on one song right now, but I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate that into other things and get some cool samples loaded on there that I can, trigger alongside some other beats with the kit. So it's a lot to figure out, but I think we're still trying to continue to evolve and get better.
I'm really excited to see you guys go along that journey. That'll be fun.
Appreciate it. I'm interested to see how it turns out too.
We may throw those songs out.
Yeah, but to go to your question, so what are you getting at? So are you saying where what's the origin of a where does a piece of art, be that music or a song, start? Where does that kernel come from, or what is art generally?
Yeah, I guess it's hard for me to ask this without giving my 2 cents on it too much.
Oh, sure.
But do you think Do you think that starts with you, or do you think that is received? Do you think that comes through
Oh
you?
yeah, I don't know, because it is a very weird process. I mean, um, I've thought about this because I don't know, just trying to describe how it works for me. At least for me, when I'm writing something, it's almost like I start to just get an idea forming in my mind, and I would describe it like almost you're hearing something like a piece of music or somebody speaking from another room, and you can't really make it out very well.
Mm-hmm.
And if you sit and listen and just kind of let it come to you, eventually you may hear it enough to be able to say, okay, I see what that is, and do something with it. But where that comes from, whether that's something rattling around in my head or whether it comes from somewhere else, I don't know. Sometimes it feels like it comes from somewhere else, but that just may be my experience.
I think it depends on the song too. Some songs just come to you and it's a quick process to put together.
Yeah.
Others, like our song Technology, I probably came up with 10 different drum beats for the whole thing for it. Like I kept scrapping it and it just wasn't working. And it was such a just slog to kind of get it into some kind of shape that we were happy with.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where kind of you personally, the effort you put into it is kind of like manifests itself in the song. And sometimes you just have to kind of like, it's a lot of work sometimes to make it happen.
Yeah.
But then you have other ones that are just really inspirational, I think, and just come together real fast.
That's a really good point. I think you're right. It's probably somewhere in the middle. It's both.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh shoot, why am I blanking today?
I mean, that's a very interesting idea, though. Just where, and at least for me, when I'm working on something, if I like it, then I almost immediately have sort of this paranoid moment of trying to think, is this just a song that I've heard or something that I've seen somewhere or something that I, came across somewhere and forgot? And that I'm thinking that I made it up, but I didn't. And that's sort of what,
The artist struggle. Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, or that's the worst, is making something you're really proud of and then finding out that someone did something very, very, very similar like 20 years ago that you had no idea about.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. It's like, oh
Right.
Man. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, beat me to it.
Do either of you have any, I should say ghost stories, but really what I mean is, do you have any experiences that are beyond your like logical reasoning, I guess?
Oh man, probably with the old house we used to live in. So we used to live in an old house not too far from here. It was just a 1930s bungalow, and it was pretty dilapidated when we moved in, and then 11 years later it was like very much more so because we never did anything to it. But I think over time it was almost like the ghosts were just building in the house, and I would get creeped out all the time. It had a basement that ran the entire floor of the house, and there was if you kind of wound around in the basement into the back into like the most interior part of it, there was an old coal room, which is a little chute to the outside, but other than that it was a completely windowless room just right in the middle of the house.
It sounds so creepy.
And I could not walk in there. I mean, even during the day the hair would just stand up on the back of my neck, and pretty ghosts.
It's the same thing in the house. My workshop was down in the basement, and I would be building things or working on something down there at night. And usually I was fine, but I would hit a point in the night where I would just be sitting there, my back's to the door of the little sub room where I was. It was not in the coal room. And all the hair would just stand up on the back of my neck, and I'm just like,
that was the ghost from the coal room.
Yeah, they
pop
their head out. No, at that point it was work in the workshop was done for the night.
Yeah, when you said you could feel like the ghosts were gathering, how would you describe that? Like pressure? You feel pressure?
No, just more cold. for me.
So
And just getting chills.
Okay.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so kind of like you were saying about your hair standing up on your arms and stuff too.
Just well, not really a physical sensation of cold, but just and
I know what
could
you mean.
have easily been just in my head, but and maybe it would be something that would, my brain would start spinning and thinking about things because it's late at night, it's dark, it's quiet down there. But yeah, it would just, I would be fine, and then there would be a moment, and I'm like, okay, it's time to go back upstairs. But we had similar. There was a back bedroom in that room that when we first moved, or in that house that when we first moved in was fine, going there all the time, no worries. But over time, by the time we left, that room had the creepiest feel. It just felt like when you were in there, it's that feeling of being in a room and someone just staring you down, like eyeballs.
I'm getting chills just hearing about it. It sounds so creepy.
Yeah. And I don't know what it was. I mean, some of it may have been the furniture that we had in there because we got a bunch of this old Victorian stuff kind of from the family that, separate story about. So it's one of those pieces, but once that stuff was in there, I don't know whether it was just the furniture itself or something came with it or whatever, but that's when it started feeling weird in there.
I gotcha.
Getting chills as a reaction to something is kind of interesting. I don't know whether y'all get this, but when I hear music that just really speaks to me, it will give me chills physically. And it's not a dissimilar feeling from feeling like there's a ghost standing next to you.
Yeah. There's something spiritual about it.
Yeah.
About like
sure.
When a song or some piece of art just really hits you, it's like I think that's the same thing that's found in religion. Is like it's a piece of art that just captivates you so much that you could make a religion out of any good piece of art, non-musical inspirations. Growing up, what are big things that kind of gave you those feelings without music?
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, no worries. So we're just talking amongst ourselves. No, for me, I was a huge Lord of the Rings fan as a kid. Just obsessed with it. So that for me was a big thing. That was a real constant growing up.
For me, it's just, I guess music has just been part of my whole life, but I did ballet for a long time. And it was that was a different way to experience and feel music. I did, very much learned a lot of the classics and very different from what I listen to today, but I feel like that definitely had an influence on me for sure.
Yeah, I think there's like I recently, because I have a great appreciation for music, but I'm not a musician. So like sometimes I like talking to musicians, obviously, but and like learning kind of that side of it. But like recently I got a deeper understanding of metal and how that comes from classical music. It's very very formulated like the same way.
Yeah.
And I think like we have updated sounds, but I enjoy going back and listening to that kind of stuff too. Or even like I'm really into blues. I know you guys were talking about blues earlier.
Oh yeah.
Like Buddy Guy is really big for me.
Oh, love Buddy
cool.
Guy. Yeah.
I grew up listening to a lot of that stuff, and Liz and I listened to a lot of it along the way. But who else do you like?
Muddy Waters.
For sure.
Amy Winehouse. Like I
Oh,
know
cool.
that's
Yeah,
more recent, but I love Amy Winehouse.
Right on.
What about you guys in that wheelhouse?
So
Similar, Elmore James.
Yeah, Elmore James definitely.
R.L. Burnside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm trying to
Albert King is always good too.
Yeah.
I really like Nat King Cole as well. I guess
cool.
it's not quite the same thing, but similar.
Yeah, kind of similar era. I'm trying to it's actually been a minute since I've spun up some of that stuff just because we've kind of been on
Miles Davis. Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god. Well, I don't know why that wasn't the first one that came to my mind. Actually, Miles Davis at the top.
Yeah.
That's jazz, obviously, but I'm getting everything crossed.
But I mean, a lot of threads, all mixed up here. Yeah. I feel you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. Just thinking about, well, I'm thinking about, coming over here to do this. Just going back through some of the things that we've listened to. So, I mean, some of our influences have been a lot of that stuff, just because I listen to a lot of those blues guys, and some of the later derivatives of that, like Zeppelin and all of those cats who just really grounded their sound and those guys. And I guess we went through a lot of psychedelic stuff there for a minute, but some of the things that I don't know, sort of mid 2010s, we came across a few things like, I don't know if you know the band Ladytron. I think they're kind of electronic. They're from England. I think they might be technically termed electroclash. I think I've heard
I've never heard that term.
Yeah, I apparently that's the genre. But a couple of things like that kind of turned both of our ears in a different way, saying, that's cool. Maybe that's the direction that we're trying to get to, and couldn't really put a finger on it because we hadn't heard that before.
I got you. I just remembered another big one for me is and then I lost it again. Well, there's the Handsome Family. That's more like blues, kind of country.
Okay,
but
cool.
Civil Wars. I love the Civil Wars. Speaking of duos.
Yeah.
I don't know them very well.
I don't know
really?
a ton of their songs. Only a couple.
Maybe we'll spin it after the podcast.
Okay, so yeah, let's do it.
Love to hear it.
So, crazy segue again. Aliens. Let's start with. So this is a two-part question for you guys. And I guess we've already kind of got into part of this question a little bit. So when I say aliens, we have extraterrestrial aliens, off world from another planet.
Okay.
Then we have interdimensional aliens, whatever you want to call that.
Sure.
So just anything under the category of like not on this plane, right?
Yeah.
So you could say just interdimensional aliens. You could say demons, angels, that kind of thing. Fairies, spirits, ghosts, anything that's not on this realm of being. And I guess let's start with extraterrestrial, like off planet.
Okay. Yeah.
So is the question, do I think they exist?
I'm the worst at this. I'm so sorry. I guess, okay. So with extraterrestrials, let's do like, first of all, do you think they exist? And then second of all, do you think they've interacted with us in the past?
Definitely think extraterrestrials exist. I think the universe is too big for it not to be.
Yeah, that's too many planets.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do I think they've interacted with us? I don't think so. Just because if they did, then they would be way smarter than we are. And circling back to natural selection and, and all of that, I think that they would have, conquered our world.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. If they're intelligent enough to get here, they would have stomped all over us for sure.
Yeah. And I on the same thing. Yeah, I think if you had, unless there just happened to be some aliens on a planet that was close enough to reach with non faster than light or close to light speed travel, then barring that, if you're having to basically go, close to the speed of light or, faster than light, if such things even possible, then your technology is so advanced and so overwhelming that, they could, destroy the planet with, from orbit outside of Jupiter and not even think a thing about it. There would be no reason for them to interact with us in such a way, I guess, that they wouldn't have any reason to worry about how we were going to react to it. You know what I'm saying? Because they would be so powerful and so advanced at that point that they would be, we'd be like ants.
I like to think about like we have tools that are so powerful that it's scary to think about, but any child could use a firearm, right? So if you imagine alien technology, it would be like any of their children could use a magnifying glass and just destroy the planet. It wouldn't take their top officials, any of them, on a whim.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be it. So, I mean, you know, maybe it's good that no one has found
If
us
there
yet.
if there are other ones, they're probably either don't know we're here because this is so vast, or there's like some kind of alliance or something where it's
Mhm.
like leave underdeveloped planets alone, like something like
Yeah.
that. I don't know.
That's an interesting thought. And, I think if we had evidence that wasn't, some, actual aliens coming here, and at that point, I mean, we'd probably be toast. But if we had some evidence of alien civilizations that were, you know, not that, it's probably going to be some kind of, robot or automated craft, because, you know, that would be the make the most sense to send out, because you can, create however many of them you need, send them out, and you don't have to you don't have to worry about lifespan or
Yeah.
food or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. We just get not even them, just some little like vessel or something.
Yeah.
I think one that I have a really hard wrapping my head around is the pyramids, because I like I've heard ideas about how it could be made with humans, but I look at that and it baffles me.
Yeah.
Because it's like precision on, like there's no space in between these stones. It's like so perfect. And it's like, I mean, but that being said, we've done a lot of amazing things as people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things that seems like it would be beyond people's capability. But I think with, I don't know, people are ingenious, and they can come up with all sorts of, ways to do things, and given enough people and enough time and enough will, I mean, I think that's something that people could accomplish. I mean,
yeah, I'm not calling it impossible by any means. I think, there's a lot of like, we've done a lot of incredible things as a people.
Yeah, but to your point though, there clearly have been some. I mean, however that whole process was done was not recorded in a way that we could really reproduce it or understand it exactly how it would be done at this point.
Right.
And maybe with enough research, you could figure out, okay, well, this is what they did, and this is, they had to have been able to do this, and try to recreate that with the tools that were available at the time. But yeah, I mean, there are some things that have been lost.
There's also stuff about like it's in alignment with Orion's belt, and there's like there's several of these structures around the Earth in like a grid kind of formation. So it's like, how did they know that? How did they know? How did they understand like geography that well? But yeah, the world's crazy, and like we said at the outset, none of us know anything about it. That's it gives me anxiety sometimes, which is kind of why I like to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because we're all just on this rock, and we're all at the end of the day, we're all children, and none of us have any idea what's going on. But it's nice having friends to talk to about it, because it's comforting.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, if you sit and think about it, it is kind of terrible. I mean, you start thinking about, so I'm just sitting on this like ball of rock that's hurtling through the universe that we know very little about. And what now? What what am I going to do? Yeah, it is a little bit overwhelming.
And I think some of this stuff, not necessarily like aliens, but some of the stuff we've been getting into, I think is important, because it's not something that everyone is willing or comfortable talking about.
Yeah.
And I've actually found that most people are. It's most people don't ask,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting to think about. I mean, our origins, what else could be out there? I mean, they're huge questions that if we ever had an answer to any of them, I mean, it might profoundly change how any of us lived our lives, which, I mean, those are.
We can actually look back at one example comes to mind of like a breakthrough we had where it completely changed our society. And it seems like my understanding of like before written history, like where everything was word of mouth, it seems like there was a period of time where like religions were very like mother centric. It was based around woman and also earth. So it was like, and it's because people didn't like basically people didn't understand where babies came from. So it's kind of like everyone was having a giant orgy, and it's like, women are these magical creatures which is still true, right? But these magical creatures are just producing children, and it's like your mother physically feeds you from her body,
Right.
and it's like once that's done, then the earth is your mother. She feeds you,
Right.
and we see later on we see this change where it's like the religions become more like masculine, and it's about the sun. So it's like the sun gives seed and energy to the earth, and like I think we've actually gotten into this is a bit of a tangent, sorry, but we've actually gotten into a new era where it's not about God the mother or God the father at all. It's God the children. It's all about idol worship. It's about us. All the gods now are rock stars. At least the ones that are doing well for themselves.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's interesting talk. That's like those sort of religious historical things. That's something that I feel like I knew more about in just from school growing up, and that's not something I've looked at in quite a minute. Have to that's going to be some homework.
It's a rabbit hole for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So interdimensional aliens.
Oh yeah,
visitors
okay,
from off this plane.
Nah, I think it takes too much energy to get from plane to plane.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I my philosophy on it is kind of like, I think maybe we have I think our language fails us in this department, because we talk about things in terms of real and imaginary.
Yeah.
And I think there is a space that actually exists where ideas are alive. I think when you conceive an idea, you've created a child, and it is somewhere. And we can I think there's at least a metaphorical truth to that, right?
Sure. Yeah.
At the very least. So it's like, I guess I think you can interact with these things though. And I say this through my personal experience, interacting with spirits. And I also like to keep, I always like to preface these things. I have a healthy skepticism about this stuff.
Sure,
I think
sure.
Always in my mind, I keep that these experiences I've had might have been some kind of psychotic break or some kind of like schizophrenic experience or something like that. Even though I don't think that's what happened.
Sure.
I think it's important to keep that at least in the back of my mind.
Sure.
Not to be all in on something. But anyway, based on the experiences I've had, the conclusion I've kind of come to is it's real and it's not real. It's in your mind and it's not in your mind. And it's kind of a handshake between these two things. You reaching out to an idea like creates it, and then it reaches back out to you.
Interesting.
And yeah, I think one of the flaws in it is the way we discuss it, because it's rigidly real or imaginary, and I don't really think that does it justice.
So are you thinking that when you think, like when you think of something, are you like any thought? Are you saying any thought creates something sort of out in the ether, or whatever you might call it?
I think it's any thought.
Interesting.
I think it's everything.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there's also Plato's cave allegory, talking about that there's, the ideal version of everything, and all of what we, everything that we see is, or think of, or can create, is a pale imitation of sort of this idea that already exists out in the world, which is, I guess, another way to think about what you're talking about.
Right.
Like, are we receiving, or are we creating?
And yeah, that's very good, because that brings it back to what you were saying about like sometimes you get this vague idea of a song, and you can kind of hear it, but it's like, and I like we do the best we can to achieve that, but I think as the artist we're always going to know, at least to some extent, that we fell short of it. But that's a good thing, because we can try harder the next time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but yeah, it exists somewhere. At least it feels that way.
Yeah.
Whether that's in your mind or what.
Yeah. So you're saying that you had experiences. Is that something that you feel comfortable talking about?
Oh, sure. Alice has heard some of these stories before, but I my first experience. So I was raised pretty religiously, and coming out of that, which I have a healthy respect for the Bible and Christianity now, but at the time I didn't. When I came out of that, I was I was an atheist, and but I wanted to know for sure. I wanted to see something, see if I could prove something to myself. So I got really into the occult, and black magic, and specifically chaos magic. And me and my partner at the time, we purchased this Ouija board. I'll actually show it to you real quick,
Okay.
because it's a little different from what you might be thinking. So this is an invoking board.
Okay.
And I didn't know the difference when I bought this. Just you can hold it if you want.
Oh, yeah. I've never seen one.
And the planchet's actually different too.
Okay. Huh. Curious.
Yeah, but we had purchased this, and I can get into the differences in a little bit, but because basically, like, just for shits and giggles, I didn't believe in it. But we took it home, and I guess I should also preface that this experience was under psychedelic influence, right? That's also an important preface on it. So we took it home, and we were playing with it, and it kind of just, we both had our hands on it, and it kind of just started moving around a little bit. And I was very, very much a skeptic at this point in my life. And my initial thought, which I don't think is totally unfair, was like, oh, maybe the other person's moving, even though I had no reason not to trust her.
Sure.
When something defies like your logic like that, I think that's what everyone's going to go to.
Yeah. Right.
But I just humored it. I'm like, okay, well, let's see what it says. And the conversation, like it became very aware to me that it was not her we were communicating with based on what it was saying.
Yeah.
At some point it started calling us mom and dad, and it was asking us to, well, first of all, it was telling her that she was pregnant, and we were just kind of telling it that that's not possible.
Right.
And well, then it was like, well, then you need to conceive a child. And we're just kind of like, that's not going to happen right now. It kind of dropped.
Your own business board.
It kind of dropped that for a minute. And then it was just talking, saying things for a while. And then after a minute, I felt like there was a string around my finger.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, look at this. And after a moment, same thing started happening to her. And over the course of a while, I don't even know, 30, 45 minutes, this thing casually started doing this, went to like moving my hand open and closed. And the best way I can describe it is like physical therapy. Like if you were in an accident and someone had to relearn how to use something. It didn't, it's like it didn't know how to use my hand, but it was trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So it just kept doing this over and over again. And she's doing, things with her hand too. And I'm just so in awe at what's happening. I think because we were in an altered state of consciousness, it put us in kind of a trance where I was more okay with what was happening than I might be if I was sober. I was more
okay. Yeah, I was going to ask that question. Were you scared when it all happened, or were you more just like kind of part of the moment?
Oddly, like tranced out actually. I would say in this situation, I normally would have been freaking out, but something about it was not freaking me out. Weird. But it like moved up my shoulder. It started rotating my shoulder. And at this point, I wiggled my toes like on purpose. I'm like, okay, well, I'm still in control.
Right.
And then I purposely stopped the rotation. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm good. I got this.
Yeah.
And so I look over her. I'm like, hey, I realized we haven't spoken. We've just been sitting here looking like crazy hippie kids staring at her limbs. And I'm like, oh, I should check on her. Like, and like, hey, are you okay? Can you give me some kind of indication? And she looks at me, and she's got tears running down her face, but she doesn't say anything, and she doesn't change her expression at all.
Oh man.
And I this like anxiety and dread like sits on me all of a sudden, and I freak out, and I'm like, hey. And I grab her hand and I move it because I don't know what I'm doing. It's the first time we've done anything like this. I don't know what the rules are. So I grab her hand and I'm like, I do goodbye.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I do that, the thing, it's not that it let go, but the grip this thing had on me, and it was on my whole body,
Yeah.
like started to let up
Oh, weird.
slowly.
Yeah.
And I could still feel it there, but it was lingering. It was
Yeah.
like, and I grabbed her hand. It's like 3 a.m. We're in our underwear. And I grab her hand and I'm like, because I feel like we need to get away from this situation. Right.
Yeah.
So I take her out of the house and down to the edge of the driveway. And at that point, she's like, what are we doing? And I'm like, do you not remember what just happened? She's like, I do, but I don't remember why you dragged me out here. Why are we standing at the end of the road? And I kind of have this like really paranoid moment where I'm like, well, is that really her?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I'm like, not good, not in a good place at that moment.
Yeah.
And she eventually calms me down. She's like, everything's okay. Let's just go back inside. And she finally calls me down and we go back in and we don't mess with that for a long time.
Yeah.
And that was the first experience. And that's usually the one I bring up. I've had many experiences. The problem with what happened is that I panicked. That's what caused it. I think everything would have been fine. And I've had many interactions with many different things. And I think spirits are just like people, right? Like there's good, there's bad, and there's everything in between. It's not black and white. It's, you have the whole spectrum of emotion. So, you know, it's like any stranger, right? You wouldn't want a stranger just coming into your house. Like,
Sure.
Like it's weird
without knowing something about their,
yeah.
You know,
oh, except you
intentions.
guys. You guys are great.
I mean,
Oh, but the difference between this and a standard evocation board is well, it has to do with geometry first of all, but it basically bubbles down to an evoking board is like talking to someone through your door, like through a screen door. Whereas this is a circle. It's they're in your home. They're what that effectively means is they're in the circle with you. They can interact with your body or whoever else is sitting in the circle. If you break that circle, it can remain with you. I think the thing about that though, where it doesn't give me too much anxiety is like these things take energy out of me to sustain the communication. I don't think something could stay with me because it takes effort on my part to do it. That's at least the way I perceive it. I do have a healthy like fear and respect of the unknown, and so I don't pretend to know that I know everything about this stuff, right? But that's my experience, is that it really comes down to your mindset. Like if you are in control, then you're in control. Yeah. But if something can trick you into thinking that you're not in control, that they're in control, then that's the reality you're in now.
Yeah. I mean, just talking about the stuff with the house, like I'm very skeptical about, you know, the reality of it, of things that we describe. But I mean, it was a very, you know, I mean, there's the feelings of being afraid of something or feeling like someone's watching. I mean, it's very visceral. Like you really feel it. And, you know, I mean, it's hard to know what that, I mean, I'm very skeptical on some level that it is anything but in my mind, but I mean, you sure feel it.
Yeah, you know? I know that feeling you're describing, cold, but not physically. Yeah. That's I would call that a sixth sense. That's something. It's not something you're actually picking up with any of your recognized senses. It's something else.
Yeah, right. You're right.
And something I think is really interesting about both your answers is you both mentioned this house. Most people I ask usually bring up something from their childhood. Does anything come to mind from when you were little? I like sleep paralysis is usually the one I hear the most.
Not really. I mean, there were things about the house that I grew up in that were a little bit creepy. Kind of similar thing, big old house from the 20s. Just kind of an old rambling creaky house, and it was just a little bit creepy, but nothing nearly as direct or as present feeling as this was in our other house. And how about you?
The only thing that I can think of is that I also grew up in an old house built in the 20s, and the stairs that went upstairs, there was right at the top of the landing, there was a really dark room where my dad just had a bunch of books, but it was like all the bookshelves are really dark. Everything was just like really dark brown. He had this really kind of like massive desk in there, this like massive like, big office chair. And I would just like get so creeped out when I was going to bed at night, like coming up the stairs, and then I had to turn right to go to my bedroom, and I could not look because I always felt like I was seeing like some big figure sitting in that chair in the dark. And it would creep me out. But I think that was mostly just me being a kid,
Yeah.
No, I'm actually right there with you guys. I haven't experienced anything supernatural until I went looking for it. I actually, because that was like a big part of my story was like I didn't believe it because I'd had no experiences like that until I actively like went searching for it. And I think I got at the time a little bit more than I bit off more than I could chew. But I don't think that's really what the three of us are describing. I don't really think that's the most common. Most people have some, whenever I bring it up, I've run into it's something from their childhood. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And I'll say, like, we live in a newer house now that was built about 10 years ago, and we have a lot of the same furniture, a lot of the same old furniture or whatever. I never get the creeps in that house. I can walk around it at night by myself with all the lights off, and it like never creeps me out. And I used to get that in the old house all the time.
I think it's that mirror.
The mirror?
Yeah. Well,
really?
That's on that like dresser thing.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Well, if I could amend my answer a little bit. So in my grandmother's house in South Mississippi, a house from 1910, that was definitely a creepy place. And so this piece of furniture that ended up in the room that got creepier over time, this is the back bedroom. So it's an old dressing table, and it has this tall mirror, and it's very, I don't know how old it is, but it's very severe. It's very big. But that used to be in this back bedroom in my grandmother's house, and that it was on this wall where there was a closet. And the closet, you open the door and there's a step up, and there's a little coat closet, but there was also a turn to your right, a step, and then a small door. And that door went up to the attic. And when you went up to the attic, all of the walls and every surface was burned from fire. It didn't completely gut the house, but it was like every surface was covered in soot because there had been a fire up there.
Whoa.
And the lady my grandmother bought it from never would talk about what happened up there.
Okay.
So sometimes, thinking about it late at night, I would feel like something crept out of that upstairs and ended up in that dresser.
Well, I think in 100 years of a house being around, or more than that, in the case of your grandmother's house, like how many people probably died in that house, and and all the stories of things that happened to people there, good and bad. But that was anyway. That was definitely a creepy place.
That sounds creepy. That's especially like an old wooden house. You'd think like the house would go up, not like burn the interior of a room. That's wild.
Yeah, it was very strange.
Like, what kind of fire was that?
Yeah, precisely. So that was creepy from the childhood.
I remember I never really thought of it as like one of these kind of stories till you brought up yours, but now I'm kind of thinking of it this way. I remember being a little kid and laying in my bed and like seeing my open closet and just looking into the blackness and imagining like something coming out to the point where it would like intense anxiety, and nothing would ever happen. But it's like I would have to go like get up, run to my parents' room, or do something, no doubt. I think there's probably something instinctual about that. Like little kids like getting snatched up by wild cats or something. It's like there's a reason you fear the dark.
Absolutely. I think that's exactly why that for a lot of our history, that sound in the darkness or that sound in the bush probably was something that was going to eat you.
There's a reason it gives us anxiety.
And so we're the descendants of all the people who are like, no, that's not going over there.
That's why we're here, is because we were scared of the dark.
Right. We're like, you go check that out. I'm gonna stay right here.
Well, this has been so much fun.
Absolutely.
Hyatt, Liz, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having us.
This has been great. Thank you.
Yeah. Alice, you can catch Cassette Stress June 10th at Springwater with Panda Forces and Taxiway. Do not be late. That is going to be a great show. I will definitely be there. So yeah. And thank you so much again for both for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. It's been a pleasure.
Again, Cassette Stress, links below. You can listen to their music and you should do so. Good night, Alice. See you next time.